Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Todd Rodden. I own the Spire Action Coach based here in Southwest Ohio. We're thrilled to have you join us today on the series. Very exciting episode today. I think you're taking a lot of notes today, some great lessons from Gabriel Rogers. Gabriel is the CEO of Jags Mechanical, really a leader in the region, providing an array of services, refrigeration, food service, HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. He's going to share more about that. But right, on top of that, just a really inspired entrepreneur, somebody who had a passion at an early age for joining in the trades and has really taken off and grown from there. So if you're new to the series, we're thrilled to have you join us, and we encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can receive future messages like you're going to hear today from Gabriel Rogers. So without further ado, Gabriel, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. We're thrilled to have you here with us. If you mind, take a second, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in the trades, and then also about Jags Mechanic.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. One of the things that I like to talk about, I'm Gabe Rogers. Obviously, you heard Todd talk about that, and the CEO of Jags Mechanical, um, which is a new title. We're inside of our business. Titles are one of those things that are more for external use than internal use. Internally, I'm just another guy. Like I'll go fix the toilet in the office too if you need me to. Anything different than that, but what I like to talk about is in my journey when I was in eighth grade. Um, we had a bunch of counselors come to school. We're getting ready to go to high school. What are you going to do? You're going to high school. You got to plan for your future. And they brought in some college counselors, I think from Cincinnati State, University of Cincinnati, maybe Xavier. And they brought in a guy named Kevin Collins out of the IEC, Independent Electrical Contractors School. And he began to talk about, he pulled up a P&L, put it on the board. After all these colleges got done talking about how much money it's going to take to go to college, and he put up a P&L. I didn't know what a P&L was. I still barely know what one is. But it's one of those things where he pulled it up and he showed the net profit at the bottom, and it was over $1 million. And like, just with the small amount of knowledge that I knew at that time, I'm like, this guy made $1 million. Like, why are we talking about spending money when you can make $1 million doing that? And this guy's 30 years old. And so as soon as that whole presentation was over, I went straight to him. I was like, all right, how do I do what you just did? Like, what is the answer? And he's like, hey, how old are you? I forget, 14 years old. He was like, soon as you're old enough that you can go get a job, give me a call. I'll help you get a job at one of the electrical places. You can work in the summertime or something like that and just be like a guy in the warehouse or run parts or something. So I started my journey that way and started learning how to make money and got involved into um, the trades that way and went and got my electrical license and graduated electrical school with a journeyman's by the time I was 20, and had electrical license and worked for a company called Denier Electric and was helping out run some pretty large projects and doing some pretty cool stuff by that age. And then my dad back in 2006 had started Jags Mechanical. Mike Rogers, shout out to Mike Rogers. But he started a company in 2006 doing refrigeration and HVAC. And towards the time I was 22, I was kind of seeing that there really wasn't a lot of place for me to grow in the company I was at unless I was either family or spent a ton of time. You're talking about 15, 20 years for me to be able to grow. And not that I'm against the um, long, waiting for it to come, but there was like, hey, I need to be able to see a path. I got to be able to see it. And it really was kind of one of those paths that it's so far out that I don't know if the path is real. So I called my father and said, hey, what if I brought electric over to your company and became a part of your business? And we went from there. And at the time, it was him and another office person and one other employee. So there's three total employees. And he was like, yeah, just let me know when. So I said, okay, how about June? This is 2014. And he's like, all right, sounds great. So I'm joining dad in the business and saying, man, I'm going to bring electric. We're going to boom. We're going to do this great thing. It's going to be awesome. And so I come over and my first job went terrible and I had no one to help me. Was the first thing that I found out.
You were it. You were the electrical,
Man,
right?
I'm the guy. Like if I needed help, it was me, and that was one of those situations where I was like, "Oh shoot, I'm in a bad spot. I got to figure out how to fix this." So we had to go through all that stuff, and it took me about 3 years to actually get settled in and understand what's going on. And in that time, I said, you know what? Because I don't have this even though I have electrical background, I don't have this mass mass amount of customers I can pull from that's going to keep me busy electrically. I better learn HVAC and refrigeration too. So in that time, I went to RSES HVAC 1, 2, and 3, and got HVAC license, refrigeration licenses as well. And so now I had three licensing, and so that got us into HVAC, refrigeration, electric. And by then, I kind of understood how to do a little bit of business and run invoices and all that good stuff. And then this is where the food service part of our company comes into, just so that you can understand how Jags fully operated. Um, Somewhere in between those 3 years of me learning, I was asked to work on an oven by a customer one day. We work in mostly restaurants, food service facilities, repair. We do food service facilities repairs and maintenance, most likely in high volume, multi city, multi location restaurants, cheesecake factories, Olive Gardens, Longhorns, Chipotle's, Noodles and Companies, those types of places that you see everywhere that are high volume
Yeah.
restaurants, Chick-fil-A's, any place like that that you see. And so I was asked to work on an oven one day when I was fixing a cooler, and I said, "Oh yeah, I didn't know I was allowed to say no." Typical young entrepreneur doesn't know that the word no is probably
Sure,
the
I
most
can.
exactly what happened. Sure, I could do that. So I went ahead and did it and called technical support. They taught me how to do work on this oven. And then I asked them like, "Hey, is there a place I can get educated on how to do this?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, this is where you go." Best technical support guy I've ever had in my entire life. I wish I knew who it was. I wish I could remember his name and the company. I can't. It's probably in an archive somewhere on my computer, but you know, but it's one of those things I learned. Well, I turned my invoice in. This will tell you how long ago this was. I turned a paper invoice in, not a digital one. And my dad had to read all of them, make sure that they're right, and mail them out because he was doing most of that stuff at the time. And he lost his mind on me. We don't work on food service equipment. We don't do that. It's hard, it's dirty, it's hot. No one wants to do it. We don't know that much about it. And I was like, well, I'll go get educated on it. He's like, well, if we do it, you're in charge of all of it. And so about that time, I was like, all right, we'll jump into it. And I started talking to customers, and they were like, hey, if we can have a one-stop company that can handle all five services that we mostly need, and I don't have to train new GMs or new AGMs or new shift leaders on who to talk to and partnership with, it makes it so much easier for us in the restaurant industry. And so we started working with facilities, VPs of facilities, general managers, depending on who's in charge of the facility. And that's one of the offerings that we give that kind of separates us out because we do all five services. Like you said at the beginning, refrigeration, food service, HVAC, electric, and we do light plumbing. When I say light plumbing, anything above the toilet seat because it's cleaner. And anything that we can't see above below the ground, we don't touch that. So if it's basic water drains out in the open and in kitchens, there's a lot of that. So we fix pretty much anything in a kitchen. So that's how we got to where we're at. And in 2019, I kind of got in the same seat I was when I was about 22 and said, hey, we're building a lot of stuff here. We had about 8 total employees at the time, maybe 9. And like, hey, we got to figure something out here because I'm starting to get older. I think I was 27, 28 at the time. Like, I'm getting older now. I want to be able to like start building up, being able to build my own wealth. And so we put together some plans, and they didn't exactly work out the way we thought they would in 2019. So going into 2020, we put together a plan where I would begin to take over the company and have percentage shares. And then COVID happened. Fantastic, right? We're in the restaurant industry, and COVID happens.
Right.
So we laid off. We were told the best thing for us to do was to lay everyone off for 2 weeks, right? Remember the old 2 week thing?
Yeah.
Only gonna be 2 weeks, guys. We'll make sure everyone's paid. 2 weeks only. Well, it ended up being a really long time. So we laid everyone off. I forget the exact date. March. Everyone will remember. It's March 14th, 12th, 13th, 14th, somewhere along there. Well, our first day back, I believe, was May 17th. I might be wrong on that. It was the Monday closest to May 17th was the day that we brought 100% of people back. But in that meantime, we had hired a coach that came in and helped us because we were struggling. We were trying to see where why are we only hitting so many dollars at the end of the day? Like, why is our net profit so low? And so we began to dig into it with a coach during that whole entire time that we were off. We had nothing better to do, so might as well pull the company apart and re-engineer it. So we begin to re-engineer the entire bonus structures, incentive programs, everything in the company. How do we know if we won or lost daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, etc.? And so we put that whole plan together. Hey, we need core values. So by the time we were done, I actually looked at. We still have our old board from our core values in 2020, and it was like 13 core values. I couldn't even tell you what they were. There was too many. We'll put it that way. So we brought everyone back. We hired people. We re-interviewed every employee. We only brought two back besides myself, uh, and they didn't make it. And then we started back off in 2020 with four employees again, and we made more net profit. We did the exact same revenue dollars as we did in 2019 to 2020 with less people. And then since that year, we've had anywhere between 30 and 42% growth year over year. Last year, we ended at 38% growth, and we're on our projection for this year is 52%. So since then, I kind of really took over the seat, and we're doing some tax strategy stuff for transfer of full business stuff. That's a different podcast for a different day to talk about that one. But that's what we've been in the middle of, and we've been doing a really cool thing over here. And I believe I answered all your questions on that one. Hopefully.
So obviously a lot to drill down there. I think in particular, a lot of folks get attention of you've got 5 or 6 years now of consistently 30 to 40% growth. That gets people's attention. So as you look back, you talked about, hey, COVID was a chance to kind of re-engineer the business, but to continue that growth now for 5 years, what have been some of those key growth strategies that pay off for you consistently?
So you heard me say earlier, one of the things that the industry in a whole has always struggled with. I'm going to do air quotes here because I think it's perceived struggle than it actually is hiring people in the trades. Um, and we completely took a whole new look at it because, and it's the same thing that I'm going to do in about another two generations. I'm going to be the old guy saying this new generation doesn't want to work. I know I'm going to be that guy. Trying,
Never heard that.
but that's what we heard. Well, I'm a millennial, and we got the Gen Zs that have coming on. Well, we have most of the baby boomers are exiting out, and Gen Xers are now the older group in the workforce, and they all say, this new generation doesn't want to work. This new generation doesn't want to work. So, being a millennial and being in charge, I'm wired a little bit different than most of my generation. I do agree with that. And sometimes I get frustrated when guys don't want to work. So I understand where the older generation comes from. So how do I get these people to work, and then how do I excite them to want to come here? And what we started doing is like, man, we talk to someone and they're like, you ever been to Chick-fil-A or Disney? And like everyone's just so nice that works there. Like they're just great. They have such a great process on training these people is the first thing we all say. They have such a great process. They train these people and they just do the job and they just do a great job. Well, every time I've reached out or talked to anybody about that, they're like, no, 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 no. We don't train these people. We just hire really good people. And it was like, okay, well, how do you do that? Well, you start hiring off of your core values and what's important to your company and your culture. So we took a book called Teamwork, a little bit of Darren Hardy has like an application thing or an interview process. Teamwork has an interview process, and then our own core values. And we took all of these things and mixed them together and said, if these things, if when we interview people, if they match these words for the most part, I don't care if you're technically sound. We know that you're going to work really hard to become technically sound. You're going to put all the effort in and you're going to do everything that helps us continue to stack wins on top of each other. So we came up with 5 words that describe Jags Mechanical, and I'll share them with you. They are our core values now. It's not 13 anymore. It's 5 words. First one is optimism, and it is something that you and I talked about before we hit the record button. Is optimism is not rainbows and sunshine or unicorns and happiness. It's I believe I can do whatever's in front of me, so I'm going to go do it. Optimism is that in Jags Mechanical. The second thing is hungry. It's the second word that we have that describes the Jags mechanical employee. We're hungry, which means we're financially motivated to where we don't want a job to go wrong because it ends up costing us. We don't want these things to fail. We want to make sure our family's taken care of, that we can go home and enjoy it. We want you to be financially motivated. It's not always financially motivated, but it's financially motivated. Most of the young guys, I can't afford to buy a house, I can't do this, but they put the effort in and figure out ways to go get finances to do it. I want my family to be comfortable. So you need some capital, unfortunately, to make sure that that happens. So those two things. And then our third word is we have it acronymed as CANI, CANI, stands for constantly and never ending improvement. People that come in and my goal is not to be better than Todd. My goal is not to be better than the other guy. My goal is to be better than me every single day. And I know that's a cliche. And I seen a LinkedIn post a couple weeks ago that got me really excited. It was an Olympic track running coach, and he talked about he had this girl come in and run a 100-meter dash. She ran at 19 seconds. That's terrible. And when we all look at it, that's terrible. That's like so slow. But he told her, "Man, you did such a great job. Come back tomorrow. We'll run it again." So she came back the next day and ran it at 18 and a half seconds. And he was like, "You set a record." He starts building this confidence, and she's getting better and better. Eventually, she gets down to the time where she's an Olympic track runner running. I don't even know what the speeds are on that, but she was constantly just seeing that continual growth and being celebrated every time there was growth. So doing that inside of Jags Mechanical, every time that there's a new threshold met by an employee, we want to celebrate that. We want constant, never-ending improvement to constantly be in your mind. There's no such thing as failure if you have constant, never-ending improvement. You just learned a new way not to do it. It's very Thomas Edison-esque. Our fourth word is T, TEA. It stands for tenaciously effective action. You have to be effective all the time. That's the tenacious part of being effective. But you can't be effective unless you're doing something. That's where the action comes in our trade, if you go out and just brush off the surface dirt off of a coil, you're being tenacious about constantly cleaning it and you're doing something, but are you actually getting into the deep parts of that condenser and making sure it's clean all the way through, or are you just wiping off the dirt on the front of it? It's kind of like spraying your car off with water. You washed it, but it wasn't very effective.
Yeah.
You got to get in there and get the stuff off. Maybe get the clay bar out and get it on the car. So being tenaciously effective action, being a doer is the best. And then our last one is number 5 is protect the shield. Our logo is a shield, and I stole this from the NFL 100%. This whole thought of you hear players talk about we have to protect the shield, and protect the shield to Jags Mechanical is 100% that. We got a lot of people that work inside of our industry. We work one day I might be working on this fryer, and then a handful of weeks another person might come in and put the final part on it. It's their job to make sure that they're communicating amongst each other if they see something goofy. Talk to each other. Don't ever badmouth each other in front of the customer. That's one. Number 2, we don't like to badmouth our competition. We hire experienced technicians, and if I'm talking bad about our competition, guess where the experienced guys come from? They come from the competitors. So if I'm bad mouthing, that company across the street, and then I hire that guy a week later, that customer's gonna be like, "Hey, didn't you just say that they were terrible, and then you hired that guy?" Kind of puts you in a bad spot. And then the final thing that Protect the Shield stands for is we like to protect the manufacturers as well. There's a lot of garbage equipment out there, 100%. We know internally what it is. We share it internally. But if you, as a customer, Todd, if you were buying a really bad piece of equipment and I'm out there to fix it, and I'm like, "Oh, Todd, why'd you even buy this? I'm not making your situation any better. You're there to fix their problem, not make it worse. Hey, Todd, we'll get you handled. We'll take you care of." Now, internally, you need to let all of our guys know this is going to be a pain to work on. This is how hard it's going to be. You can't get parts. You got to do all these things. We need to know that, but we don't want to make Todd feel bad about your purchase. You're already in a bad spot. That's why you called us, right?
Mhm.
So we're there to make it better. And so those are the 5 things. When we started hiring people that have that kind of mindset and literally hiring, firing, and promoting off of those 5 words, that's where I want to put our first growth in, is saying, hey, all these people are in this company are doing that every single year. And it costs a lot of money to grow as well, as anyone who knows is like, so when you ask like, hey, getting excited about this growth is awesome. I mean, year 1, we had one year, we almost hit 50% growth our first year from 2020 to 2021. Massive jump. But it was one of those things like we had people constantly pushing, working hard, but they were doing those 5 words and staying focused on those 5 words, whether they knew that they were doing that or not. But we could recognize it. And our business development team has helped put together an interview process that helps select between, hey, these people have it or they don't have these core values. Or, hey, I can kind of see these core values, but until they get here, it's not, we're not really sure. And it's hard because like you're going to hire people, and a lot of people ask us, hey, like, what's your retention rate with employees? Within 90 days, it's very low. After 90 days, they stick around. If they make it past their 90 days, because once people were in here, I also have I have the wherewithal to understand that people can fake it through an interview pretty good. A really good salesperson can fake it through an interview, and we've had that 100%. We've had people stay here, but the good news is when one of our managers understands that or lets someone go within the 90 days, we have full trust that like they're not a core value fit. It showed up fast, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing all the time. So they're protecting the culture. And it's the cliche, the culture matters, and it's a cliche because it does. It's real. Cliches are real statements for a reason. So that's kind of what I attribute most of our growth to. And it's also becoming specific who we're servicing. We used to service everyone. We're specific on food service facilities, repairs and maintenance, and high volume, multi city, multi location restaurants or food service facilities. When we became specific on that, and we're not just taking work from anyone, no, this is what we like to do. This is what we're good at. That's what really drove us forward. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, great examples. Love the mixture. Not only, hey, being clear on who your targets are, but obviously a deep commitment to the culture and hiring for that. So you mentioned, hey, big growth goals continue on for this year. So as you look forward, what's a challenge you see in front of you that the team's trying to figure out now?
Man, the biggest thing is in our industry and the people we service is it's always cash flow. It's a cash flow thing because as you grow, your expenses begin to grow, and we're all most of our customers are net 30 payers, and really anyone I've heard it my whole entire life being in business is you don't work for the 3 R's: restaurants, religion, or relatives. Those. And whenever you ask anyone, it's like, well, they're the worst payers, and it's kind of funny. We've seen a little bit of that, and that's usually our biggest thing. Everyone usually pays unless like I have to stay dialed into restaurant news and that kind of stuff on who's filing Chapter 11 or Chapter 13. Overall, I do have to stay dialed into that kind of stuff to see, hey, are we going to be able to get what we put out? We obviously put a collections thing in place and COD and all that kind of stuff in place to help mitigate most of that. But it does happen, and cash does stay out, and having money out of your company is expensive. It's very expensive. You're paying interest on it. So that's usually the biggest struggle with growth is making sure that we have the capital for it. Example, 2024 was a massive revenue growth year, but we struggled because we hired a lot of inexperience and had to train it. And that year, plus the restaurant industries and everything had the PPP money, it started running out, and you were seeing a lot of like the industry not spend as much as they did before. So our growth kind of it didn't I don't want to say revenue growth dropped, but it didn't grow as fast as we would liked it to have. And a couple restaurant groups that we worked with filed bankruptcy or closed down in that time. And so we were left in a couple cash spots that were made us a little bit vulnerable. So keeping your eye out further and making sure that your 13-week cash flow model is dialed in is what we're looking at now, and like making sure that we know what our burn rate is on cash. That's really the big thing because that lets me know, can I hire, because really growth has a lot to do with hiring people and how many customers you can acquire during that growth as well. Because in our industry, and anyone listening to this, it's in a restaurant most of the time. And this is, I know you're going to talk to me a little bit about like what separates us from competition and what's my uniques is we can be on site within 48 hours at all times. That's one of the things that separates us apart from Jags and than most of the competition is most of the time when people call for restaurant facilities questions, people, depending on who the customer is, that has a lot to do with it. You're looking at 2 weeks out almost all the time. And we guarantee that we can be on site within 48 hours. We can usually be on site same day. It might have an overtime cost to it, but we can be on site the same day if you need us to be. That's one of the things that separates us apart. And so between that and the struggles I see with growth is making sure that the amount of employees versus customers acquired is matching up and cash flow. So like those are the three things that we're constantly looking forward to. And then we always pay attention to like, hey, retention is a huge thing. We invest a lot of money into our technicians and spend a lot of money in inexperienced people. So making sure that they're staying around here, that the return on investment is there, which is also just cash flow. It
Yeah.
all comes back to making sure the cash is flowing correctly.
Yeah. Well, the retention's key because you're investing a lot in growing and training them, right? You're hiring for the great values, but the upskilling them over time, right? So you're investing a lot in them. So that's essential. So,
Yeah. I mean, one of the things we did this year to help understand that is we did hire a fractional CFO. So that's one of the things that we're at the size where we're between really needing a CFO and not needing one. So fractional, we feel like is the best thing for us, and it so far has been fantastic. So anyone out there that's been doing that, fractional CFO is definitely the best move. It elevated our entire leadership room. I will say that.
good, great solution. So, Gabriel, I'm curious that you've had this great growth personally in your career, passion starting out as an electrician in the trades. So, eventually going from being a technician to now running the business. You're now in different rooms around a lot of different types of people. You know, imposter syndrome is a common topic these days. So, I'm curious, how have you come across that and maybe overcome, which is natural for all of us as we grow and develop?
Well, I mean, I didn't drop this in earlier, and I want to kind of drop this in when I talk about imposter syndrome because this came up in a conversation with me about 2 weeks ago. We talked about it in a Vistage room, and it was very one of those things that kind of made me step back and really look at the word imposter syndrome and what it means because it's something that I have felt, and it's because mostly of our purpose, the thing that drives our company and what we're trying to do is not exactly taking care of facilities. That's how we pay for the cause that we have in our vision, and that is building smarter, wealthier people than universities. And a lot of time when people hear that statement, they're like, "Oh man, you're against universities." Not really. It's one of those things where I'm differently educated. I've never spent a day on a college campus unless I was there fixing something. But I've never spent a day on a college campus. I've never been into a university class. I've never went to college. And to be where I'm at and the rooms that I've elevated to, and like I mentioned, Vistage and other boards that I've sat on, is when I look around that room, I don't have the credentials as other people. So then, a little bit of doubt creeps into your own mind, like, should I even be here? And it's one of those like, hey, I don't really deserve to be here. And that's where the imposter syndrome creeps in to yourself. And it's kind of looking around and saying, wait a second, remember what my vision is, remember what we're trying to build. And the reason our vision is what it is. If anyone's ever read Phil Knight's book about Nike and his successes, we kind of drew our vision from that. I believe it's his last page, and there says, "All I want to do is beat Adidas."
Yeah.
That's his last page, right? And so we were like, wait a second, we want to give young people, and because I was told, I even talked about how I got into the trades is they spent all that time talking about spending money in college. This is how you're going to become successful. Going to college, this is how you become successful. And then the guy that didn't go to college was the one that I was like, hold on a second, he's talking about making money. So we want to make sure that that's being shared. I try to talk at a few of the high schools and places that I've went and make sure that that's being shared because the average income, if I'm basing this off of memory right now, when I looked it up on Grok a while ago, I think the average income of a master's degree in the United States is about $96,000 right now. 2023, I think it was 86, and then back before 2020, it was 60 something thousand. And so when I was now that's obviously AI, so no one knows if it's hallucinating or not. Drop that there for a
Right.
second. But if that's accurate, then a lot of the people in the trades don't realize that how much money people are making in the trades and how much money is available to make in the trades with no debt at all. Obviously, there's ways to get around debt in colleges if you're an intelligent person and can get scholarships, but we want to make sure that we're constantly pushing that out. Now, that comes back to the imposter syndrome. When we're sitting in a room as a leader and we don't have any education or we're uneducated, uh, one of my mentors said, "Don't stop saying uneducated. You're just differently educated." And so that's one of the things that I've started trying to hopefully share with our team as we've built a leadership training program in our company of, hey, we need you to be leaders. Remember, you're just differently educated. We're seeing a little bit, we're seeing the world from a different place, but we want to be able to give young people an opportunity to become smarter and wealthier than universities without having to go spend the money to become educated. We're willing to spend that on you. We're willing to take the time to help teach you. Because if you're a good person, our five core values, if you have those five core values, we're going to take the time and effort to help you make sure that those things are true and spend it on you. And so I've had to fight that in my own mind, being in rooms where I'm like, man, I definitely don't belong here. Like, how did I get here? I've told my wife before we've been talking, and I've talked to my wife and been like, man, I guess who I was with today. This is wild. I definitely shouldn't have been there. And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you know what? No, you've worked hard enough to be in these rooms. And it's one of those things I think that changes my mind when I walk into a room like that. It's how much can I reap, or how much can I glean from here while I'm here? How much wisdom? These people have all the education. I'm gleaning it for free from all of these guys, is the way I started viewing it. And man, I might not have anything to add, but I usually always leave better. So that's how
And
I've
thank
kind
you
of.
for sharing that openness, that transparency, and trust me, those folks are learning stuff from you as well. So take that to heart. All right. So Gabriel, our time flies. When we have these discussions, so many great points. I hope our viewers have taken good notes as they've been watching here. Lots of inspiration from what you've been building at Jags and the team and your approach there. I'm curious, what are you inspired by today?
Man, we talked about this in our podcast this past week about like, man, if there was a trait that we could have right now that would just boost us forward, what is that? And that trait would be, can I inspire people and make sure that we're doing that constant and never ending improvement? If I can drop in on an employee and just help them understand that optimism and saying you can do it, like I believe in you, and then like you get something from that, man, that gets me amped up. Like that gets me super amped up to like drop in on someone, their day boost, their productivity boost, everything in their home life boost, because you're dropping in like, no, no, you got this. And it's really being the coach in the corner of the boxing ring saying, hey, you're gonna have to duck a few times. You're gonna have to get up. You're gonna have to swing the left hook, and then dodge a little bit to the right, and then drop two quick jabs, and then step back and see how they feel. And like they're like, yeah, I could do that. And getting them that, and really coaching up this young generation. I say young generation. I'm a young guy, but coaching up my and other guys and being like, hey man, you're actually doing something really cool, and people taking inspiration from that and wanting to do some really great things with it. And that gets me excited. And like I said, we talked about this on our podcast yesterday with our business development guy, and it's really instilling confidence in the people that work at Jags Mechanical, and not just Jags Mechanical. If I step in anywhere, I want people to be like excited when they leave. Like, are they inspired? I've been lucky enough to be around and blessed enough to be around a lot of people that do that to me all the time on a weekly basis. So man, if I could pass that on to someone, I would be that gets me energized. That's why my feet hit the ground every morning when I get out of bed. Hey, who can I go get juiced up today?
Okay. So as we thank you for sharing that. Yeah, great thoughts. So as we do wrap up here, you mentioned your podcast, which we can share with the audience maybe more about that, but also what are the best ways for folks if they want to learn more about Jags or to get connected with you?
Yeah, get on jagsmechanical.com is the easiest way just to see what we are and get contact information. If they want to get in contact with me, I usually have someone else run my LinkedIn, but I sometimes run on it. But LinkedIn will have a good way to get a hold of me. It has my email and all that jazz on there. And then our podcast is called the Smarter and Wealthier Podcast. Um, it's literally driven. We ask our technicians all the time and our employees, hey, what's something that you would like to be educated on? that you don't know how to do. And one of the ones that we had not too long ago was, hey, the big thing around the younger generation is you can't afford a house, can't buy a house. So we said, okay, we brought realtors in, we brought mortgage brokers in, and we interview them on the podcast just to get smarter and wealthier on how can these guys do this. And then we bring on wealth advisors and financial advisors on how, no matter what amount of money you make, this is how you can plan. So we try to find ways for guys to make sure that they're building their wealth and becoming smarter. But Smarter and Wealthier podcast, LinkedIn, and jagsmechanical.com are probably the three ways to get a hold of me.
Or urge our viewers to check those out in the show notes. So, Gabriel, just thank you for sharing your story today. Great, snapshots of the importance of culture, core values, developing your team, getting clear on who your target customers are, and really growing from there. So, thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Todd.
All right. And to our viewers, we're thrilled to have you join us today. And we encourage you to hit the like button. That helps us with sharing the message. And also, as I mentioned before, if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you can receive future inspiring messages like you heard from Gabriel Rogers today. And with that, I hope you all have a terrific day.